Welcome to the Action Network studio in New York City. I'm Maria Marino, and this is Green Dot Daily. We're live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action app. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Monday means NBA State of the Union with our senior writer, Matt Moore. That includes a bet for tonight. But as you can see, we have a doubleheader on tap in the NFL, so that's where we start. Here's the breakdown for Packers-Giants. 59% of bets and 50% of money are on the Packers, -6, while 81% of bets and 90% of money are coming in on the under 37. Saquon Barkley to score the first touchdown at +525 is the most bet prop per MGM. Barkley has 1 rush TD and 4 receiving TDs in 9 games played this season. Let's say hello to our analytics duo of Sean Koerner and Nick Giffen. We're going to talk about both games, but we're not going to waste any time with getting your props for this game. So, Sean, you start us off. What do you like for Packers-Giants?
Yeah, so I am going with Dontavian Wicks over 34.5 receiving yards. Got to act quick on this. This has been moving up all day because that's where the sharp money's coming in on. But, Christian Watson is expected to miss tonight's game with the hamstring injury, and Wicks has typically operated as Watson's direct backup all season. So I expect him to be a near 1-for-1 replacement for Watson tonight. That means it'll likely be Romeo Doubs and Wicks, not Jaden Reed, who are used in most of the 2 wide receiver sets. Jaden Reed is typically only in there for 3 wide sets as he's the main slot receiver. And the Packers use 3 wide receiver sets less when they're playing with the lead. So in a game where they're 6-point favorites likely to play with the lead, we might see more 2 wide receiver sets than normal tonight. So I expect Wicks to run a route on over 70% of Jordan Love's dropbacks tonight. And the Giants use man coverage at the 2nd highest rate. Wicks has seen his target rate go up against man coverage 25% compared just to 19% against zone. And then it's going to be critical when he's in those 2 wide receiver sets with Romeo Doubs. I think that's going to help him see even more targets because Doubs has only seen a target rate 11% of the time against man and 22% against zone. So look for those when they're in a 2 wide set with Wicks lined up across from Doubs. I think Love will be looking Wicks' way. Plus the Giants blitz at the 2nd highest rate in the league. Wicks has seen his target rate go up when Jordan Love is blitzed. So a lot of reasons to love the over here. I'm projecting the median closer to 41.5. With about a 61% chance he goes over 34.5.
In case you missed it on our graphic, he has gone over this in his last 4 games, along with all the other reasons that you outlined. This seems like a great matchup for Wicks. Nick, how about you?
Yeah, I guess mine correlates with Sean's because if Wicks is getting all the targets, A.J. Dillon is not. I have A.J. Dillon under 15.5 receiving yards. And I gave his over on receiving yards 2 weeks ago on Thanksgiving against the Lions, but here I got to go under. Aaron Jones not expected to play, but that really hasn't helped Dillon's receiving production in games with Jones this year. He has 19.7 receiving yards per game, Dillon does. And in games without Jones, he only has 12 receiving yards per game. So it's actually his receiving production has gone down. And as Sean mentioned, the Giants, they blitz at the 2nd highest rate in the NFL, and they play man coverage at the 2nd highest rate in the NFL. Both of those will hurt Dillon's production. His target share goes down versus man coverage because he's man marked out of a lot of the routes that he does run. And he also has to stay in and block more because the blitz is so much. There's so much men coming on the blitz that you have to stay in and block a little bit more. So he actually ends up running fewer routes as well. That's part of why the Giants allow the 2nd fewest receiving yards per game to the running back position. The other reason, game script. The Giants are so bad that teams often just stop throwing on them late. And, Green Bay, of course, here favored by 6. So there'll be less passing overall if they lead late. Also, backup running back Patrick Taylor has gotten a lot of the 2-minute drill work. So if he's played an average of 40% of the snaps the last 2 weeks with Jones out, and he's averaged 14 routes run in those 2 games compared to Dillon's 13 routes run in those games. So I've got Dillon projected closer to like 11.5 for this median. Although if this does get bet down to like 13.5, because I have seen some 13.5s out there, I do like pivoting to under 2.5 receptions instead.
Okay, well, as it stands, we have an over and an under from each of you, both on Packers players. And before we move on to the next game, I do want to ask you about the spread, Nick, because our colleagues, Chad Millman and Simon Hunter, both bet the Giants plus 6.5. I mean, you said it. They're so bad. It's hard for me to stomach a bet like this, but I know I am jaded as a New York local. So what do you think?
Yeah, this one's interesting, and I love Simon and Chad, but I'm going to lean. It's just a lean toward the pack here, the Green Bay Packers. One thing that I think is very important is Jordan Love's play against the blitz versus against no blitz. And against the blitz, he actually does a lot better. And we mentioned how much the Giants blitz. They blitz on over 40% of the snaps. Well, Jordan Love's adjusted net yards per attempt, 6.75 versus the blitz, and just 6 versus no blitz. His sack rate goes down against the blitz, amazingly enough. His interception rate is 0 against the blitz this year. And his adjusted completion percentage goes up from 70% to around 73.5%. So if the Giants do continue to blitz at that high rate, that actually will help Jordan Love in the pass game. And the Giants can't stop the run. They're 29th in rush DVOA. Plus the luck rankings slightly lean towards the Packers here with a luck difference of 10 and a luck gap around 12.5%. So all that combined, I think the Packers can throw the ball. I think they can run the ball. If I were the Giants, the adjustment I would make, still play that man coverage, maybe just blitz a little less, because when you have an extra man or two in coverage, they tend to have less receivers open, and that makes Jordan Love hold on to the ball a little bit longer and take more sacks. So if the Giants make that adjustment, I can definitely see the Giants covering here, but it's all going to depend on whether they make that adjustment or not.
Coach Giffen, I think you're onto something. We will have Chad and Simon on the show tomorrow, so they will get to react to whatever happens. But let's talk about the other half of our doubleheader. Majority of bets and money are on the side of Miami, who's laying 14. As for the total, the public and sharps are going head-to-head. 70% of bets are on the over, but big money coming in on the under. And 3 of the top 5 most bet props at MGM, feature Tyreek Hill, none other. That includes his anytime touchdown at -190. He and Jalen Hurts are tied for 3rd in the league with 12 touchdowns on the season. So before we get to your actual picks for this one, I want to ask about another popular prop. Hill receiving yards, Sean, has moved to as high as 112.5 at this point. What are your thoughts on that?
I was actually considering going with the under here, but I thought better of it. I'm well aware how good Tyreek Hill is. I'm well aware this is a great matchup, but this number is just a bit too high. And I feel like if he ended up going over when I had the under, I'd have to delete Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it today, because I would just get, trashed for that. So I stayed away. He defies projections, so I'm not going there. If anybody deserves a projection this high, it's him.
So he's averaging 135 over his last 3 games. We know he's got 1481 on the season, chasing Calvin Johnson's single season record of 1964. Okay, I have another question for you. Our producer, Charlie DeSturco, actually posed this in our NFL Slack channel. He said, does anyone know if 112.5 yards is the highest ever prop for a receiver? Our director of research, Evan Abrams, responded. Nick or Sean, do either of you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I definitely remember Justin Jefferson having a really high receiving prop when he was going for the record late last year. So that would be my guess.
Sean?
Yeah, and I remember Cooper Kupp, similar situation, right, where he was going for the record. I think I took his over, and if I remember correctly, he didn't clear it.
Bang, bang, ding, ding, whatever sound effect you want to use. You guys are both correct. I knew I wouldn't be able to stump you. So, yeah, JJ and Cooper Kupp, they are the other 2 that Evan said with a higher prop there for receiving yards. I guess we can move on now. We've kept the people waiting long enough. So, Nick, why don't you give us your pick for this game?
Yeah, we're finally going to an anytime touchdown in a primetime game, not on somebody way down the odds board, but actually on a favorite here, a relative favorite. And I'm going with Raheem Mostert anytime touchdown at plus 125. Interesting enough, his splits are nearly identical in games with and without Devon Achane. 8 touchdowns, 7 rush, 1 receiving in 6 games with Achane, and 8 touchdowns, 7 rush, 1 receiving in 6 games without Achane. But we really want to look also at, Achane's snap share or snap amount, because he did have 2 games where he played like 3 and 6 snaps. So let's pretend he didn't play those games. Then Mostert's TD rate or TD numbers have actually gone up in full Achane games, only 1.25 only in games without Achane, and 1.5 in games with Achane in terms of TDs per game. He does get a little bit more of like the goal line work. That would be Mostert. So 11 carries to Achane's 4. So, that would kind of doubled around 8 or so for Achane. But I just think this is a spot where Mostert's odds are inflated because Achane's playing. Tennessee is second in defensive rush DVOA, but it's the Miami Dolphins. They're going to move the ball, especially against the Titans' 31st ranked DVOA pass defense. If they can get it down the field, and if they get stopped inside the 5 or the 10-yard line, that's where these guys can punch it in. So I like Mostert anytime touchdown. If you do want to wait closer to game time, these odds do tend to lengthen. So I may do that. I haven't tracked it yet. I may wait, or I may just track it at plus 125. And honestly, I also like Achane anytime touchdown at even money as well, showing projection value on both Miami running backs.
I feel like that's not a hard sell. Like, sign me up pretty much right now, or as soon as I get off the show, I'll bet it. But Sean, what about you? Sean?
Yeah, I'm going with a defensive player prop here. I'm going with Jalen Ramsey under 3.5 tackles and assists. You can get it at minus 130 right now. Not worried about any juice right here. I'd bet it down to like minus 160, minus 170. Love this number. But Ramsey has only cleared this in one of the 5 games he's played in this year. The only time he cleared it, he had 4 tackles against the Chiefs back in week 9. So he only barely cleared this when he did. And that's because teams just rarely throw the ball his way. And when they do, it's usually an incomplete pass. So that's why they don't do it. But, Ramsey is allowing a reception for every 21 snaps in coverage, which is the best rate in the league. I would only expect Will Levis to drop back and pass maybe 33 times. So you could do the math on that. It's going to be a very low number of targets going Ramsey's way. And he's not really involved in run defense. He's made 1 tackle and run defense this year. I'm sure that was a mistake. So he's not going to be in there trying to tackle, Derrick Henry or anything. And Miami has allowed 20.5 completions in his 5 games this year. And Will Levis's completion prop is 18.5. So this is going to be, a couple fewer tackles potentially for Ramsey to even be involved in. The only thing that you'd worry about is if he's, covering DeAndre Hopkins a little bit more expected, but I don't anticipate that. The Dolphins play quite a bit of zone. They don't use Ramsey in shadow coverage. So if anything, the Titans will just line up Hopkins away from Ramsey, just target anybody who Ramsey isn't on. So I'm not too worried about that. So I'm projecting this closer to 2.6 tackles and assists, which is about a 68% chance to stay under 3.5. So that's why I'm saying not worried about the minus 130. I would bet this down to say like minus 170.
Wow, good to know. We have so much to watch out for tonight. Sean Koerner and Nick Giffen, thank you for joining the show. It's always a blast.
Thanks for having us.
You can catch more Nick Giffen, by the way, tonight on Bet What Happens Live, where he gives his expert opinion on what to bet in the moment. So make sure you have the Action app or YouTube channel open heading into halftime of both games.
Here are my touchdown scorer picks for Titans, Dolphins, and Packers, Giants, brought to you by the Action Network app. And for Titans, Dolphins, I'm going to take DeAndre Hopkins. I grabbed his touchdown odds at plus 295. Now, he has a touchdown in 3 of 6 games with Will Levis at quarterback. He also had a 3-touchdown game with him. Now, the Dolphins defense, they play a mix of zone and man coverage. And for Titans wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins has done the best against both defenses. Now, Miami has also allowed a wide receiver 1 to score in 3 of the last 4 games. They ranked 22nd in defensive DVOA to wide receiver 1. This has a trailing game script written all over it for the Titans, so I'm going to bank on Hopkins to score. Now for Packers Giants, I'm going to take a pair of Giants wide receivers. I'm going to take Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt, both at plus 600, and put a quarter unit on each. Now, both are playing heavy snaps over the last couple of weeks. Robinson has the lowest ADOT for Giants wide receivers, while Jalen Hyatt has the highest, and both have excelled versus zone coverage. The Packers play zone at top 10 rate in the NFL. Now, Saquon Barkley is around plus 120. He hasn't scored a rushing touchdown since week 2. This should be a matchup made for him, but with such a low total, I'd rather bank that one of these two get a busted play on a touchdown on a long shot than banking on a favorite. So those are my picks. We're going with Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt and DeAndre Hopkins, all tracked at the Action Network app. Bone Shumps.
To the NBA, on Friday night, Victor Wembanyama became the youngest player in NBA history to record a 20-point, 20-rebound game, beating the previous mark set by Dwight Howard as a rookie in 2005. Spurs will look to break a 16-game losing streak tonight against the Rockets. Wemby is minus 160 to record a double-double. Also playing tonight, the Timberwolves, who have the best record and defense in the league. They've won 6 in a row, but are road underdogs taking on the Pelicans. Last time out, the Pels were steamrolled by the Lakers in the in-season tournament semifinals. Zion's under 10.5 rebounds and assists. Tonight is an Action Pro top prop. Meanwhile, the darling of the in-season tournament and league assists per game leader at 12.1, Tyrese Halliburton, will look to bounce back after Saturday's loss to the Lakers, in which he was held to his lowest scoring output, 20, in his past 8 games. His points total is 27.5 as the Pacers are laying 7.5 on the road in Detroit. So we're coming off the in-season tournament, and despite a 2 p.m. local tip time on Thursday and a court that matched Spider-Man, the knockout rounds were very entertaining. For more around the league, I turn things over to our NBA Commander-in-Chief, Matt Moore.
My fellow NBA fans, I'm honored as always to speak to you this week for the NBA State of the Union. And we'll start where else but with the Los Angeles Lakers, the icon of the league, the most popular franchise, who added the in-season tournament first inaugural cup to their long list of accomplishments. It's always good to see plucky teams that haven't really won anything finally catch a break. With the Lakers, honestly, the biggest takeaway for me was that this was proof of concept that the Lakers can win the NBA title this season. They started off slowly, had a lot of injuries, Jared Vanderbilt among them, but they were dominant in the in-season tournament games, going 6-0, not registering a single loss. As such, you have to consider the fact that the Lakers have shown something in games that really matter. Anthony Davis was incredible in the finale, facing mostly Isaiah Jackson because Miles Turner had foul trouble, as did everyone else because the officials went nuts. But it's a show that the Lakers can win meaningful games with their combination of physicality, defense, and a little bit of improved shooting. The Lakers are at plus 1,800 to win the title, and I gotta tell you, while this may be a time that you think that's buying high on them, this may be an inflection point, and if they can stay healthy, they might actually be able to make a run for the NBA title this season. As for the bad, the New Orleans Pelicans. I have a lot of problems with you, and you're going to hear about them. The Pelicans were absolutely disgraceful in their tournament loss on Thursday. They got past the Kings, and that was a good win. The Pelicans, honestly, I thought had a chance to come out of the West in the IST. They have a real capacity to actually compete in the Western Conference, and instead they got absolutely destroyed. After the game, there was a media report out of New Orleans that Zion Williamson's conditioning has been brought into question by management and coaches who have spoken with him, and quote, Zion doesn't listen. The IST was a major stage. This is an opportunity for them to really make their mark and show that they're ready to compete in the Western Conference. And instead, the Pelicans looked like absolute clown shoes. Maria, it's very rare that your commander-in-chief, will ever mark off a team based off of one game in the regular season. Even an IST game, it takes a lot for me to be like, well, that matters more. Sharpie, the Pelicans are out. They might make the playoffs, but they're not going anywhere meaningful after that disastrous, again, clown shoes performance.
Well said. And first, with regard to LeBron, the NBA should be thanking him because he embraced the in-season tournament from the start, and he is still the guy that everyone else looks to as an example. He is proving that he's still one of the best. He's not just playing great for his age, he's playing great, period. As for Zion, totally agree with you. I am out. That report, if true, is so damning. It's part of your job to be well-conditioned and to take care of your body so you can stay on the floor, something that Zion hasn't done much, really, since he's been drafted. So it's just such a bummer because he is so talented and he still has those amazing plays. I just need to see more. I just need to see a better effort from him.
Absolutely. And, I think there's a lot of questions also about the fit with Brandon Ingram. I think in general, you've got to be in a position here where I would just be wondering, are the Pelicans going to keep this together, or is it time to make major changes? Jose Alvarado said this week that, no, we know what we've got to do. We still believe in this team. He said, I know that's weird to say after how Thursday looked, but we really believe in this team. They have leaders on that team. They just need the best players to be among them.
Fair enough. Well, what's one more thing we should know about?
Let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets obviously last year was disastrous for them, losing both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in trades, thanks to, Kyrie being Kyrie. But they've actually managed to put themselves back together pretty well. This is a mishmash roster, but they're playing very, very well right now. The Nets are the number one team against the spread this season in the NBA, and it's a big reason why I'm on them. Plus 4.5 versus the Sacramento Kings on Monday night. We got a great slate of games coming out of the tournament with so many teams playing. The market has fundamentally been unable to adjust to the Nets. They're shooting a high frequency of threes. They play an extremely efficient brand of basketball. They're one of those teams that maximizes the edges that they've got on their team. Not all teams do that. The Pelicans. And so you've got this opportunity for them to be able to really compete in these environments. So I love the Nets in this spot. The Nets are 14-4 when they make more threes per game than their opponent. They make more threes than the Kings, and 8-1 against the spread when they average more offensive rebounds than their opponent. They average more offensive rebounds than the Kings. I love the Nets plus 4.5 tonight versus the Sacramento Kings.
You love the Nets tonight, and I love these new look Nets in general. And by new look, I mean post-Durant era, because I think it's pretty remarkable how well they made out in that trade, considering everything, considering the whole situation that they were in the couple years prior to that. Mikal Bridges is a stud. I actually took the Nets to go over their win total at 35.5. I got this at earlier in the season. I'm feeling pretty good about it. So I am loving this Nets trend. Looking forward to tonight. Matt Moore, it's always a pleasure to hear from you for our NBA State of the Union. Thank you.
God bless you. God bless the NBA.
Remember, any picks we give out here on the show, you can easily reference by following Green Dot Daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. That's all for this edition of Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app.